Well, hello, Shocket. Hello, world. Here we are again for another multicultural mailer business online forum. So it's turned into a bit of a thing because now we've got the online forums, we've got the monthly workshops. We'll be starting a business startup program shortly, business mentoring program shortly, and we're getting asked for other things as well. So we're certainly getting into business in a big way, and this has been a really good thing that has sort of brought us together and it's been a focusing. So it's been good, the information that's come out through the online forum, but it's also been good how it's contributed to starting the overall business program. So thanks for that, Shocket, and thanks for the content. Now, is it okay if I leave it with you? You take it from here.
Sure, but just quickly checking, what do you see on the screen?
I see you, a multicultural mailer.
Okay, and do you see yourself in the high-vis orange jacket with the funny bunnies hat?
That's up the top on the left, on the right.
You can see that, right?
Yep.
So, and what do you see now?
I see the next slide, whatever that is.
Excellent. So okay, thanks for that, Travis. And I'll just kick this off. So if you're watching this, you're wondering if this is for you. So if you feel like you're working like a prisoner in your own business, your peers are beating your price and still expanding margins in this economy in 2025. In the middle of the night, you're waking up, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., you're wondering, I'm working 80 hours a week just to stand still. And stand still could be, you could be making $3 million a year. But, are you thinking the business would fall apart if you took a 2-week holiday? And, we're busier than ever, but our profits are shrinking. So if any of that resonates with you, you'd really like to move from doer, operator, owner to investor, then stick around. So every week I share my thoughts and knowledge I've learned from industry legends like Dan Kennedy, Jay Abraham, Bob Serling. So this is part of my experience, but where do I get my experience from? From implementing what I've learned. So consider yourself saving a fortune in private courses. So before we start, I just want to clarify that this is generic advice. I don't know you yet. I don't know your business yet. I do suggest to implement, but when I suggest to implement, start small, have a fire extinguisher ready, keep it low cost, no cost as possible, low risk, no risk, fail fast, learn fast. We take responsibility for our actions, and that's the only way for true growth. Okay, so this week I want to talk about the experience economy, how to create a world basically how to create a world that your customers will never leave. So we're moving away from just selling products or services and towards a complete immersive world for our customers to inhabit, a world they feel a part of, feel safe in, and ultimately never want to leave. So it's not just about customer service, customer success. You've heard all this, okay? What we're focusing is architecture, deliberate design of an experience that is so compelling, so unique, so satisfying. The customers, clients, patients happily spend far more than they ever intended and feel wonderful about it. We're going to study the absolute master of this craft and see how we can apply the principles to our own businesses, no matter the size, the industry. We might be B2B, might be B2 industry like G. Ultimately, it's H to H, human to human. The most sophisticated person or the decision maker we're dealing with, bottom line, the human beings, their feelings. They'll try to hide it, obviously. They want to be rational. They want to be logical. Ultimately, they have hopes, their fears, their desires. So how can we tap into that to create the experience economy for our business? Okay. Now, very quickly, I'll introduce myself. My name is Shaukat. You can get it wrong because I've probably been mispronouncing it for the last 40 years, 48 years. My entire career basically has been a journey, right, to understand a shift from how master technicians, possibly like yourself, business owners, how do we get them to become the grand strategist of your business? So now the business is not reliant on you. Think about the 3 pain points I spoke about earlier, right? So how do you get away and eliminate that middle of the night anxiety and actually build something that thrives? So I didn't start in strategy. I started on the street. I was selling real estate for El Hooker straight out of uni, 2 degrees I did at Griffith, and I went straight into sales. One-on-one, face-to-face, nose-to-nose, toe-to-toe sales. Taking on expired listing to the market experts couldn't sell, and getting them across the line. I switched back into my finance expertise. I became a finance advisor, learning how to get deals funded outside of standard policy. It was a too hard basket. I had no experience, so people came with me getting rejected from your traditional lenders, and I'll go back to those traditional lenders and say, here's your policy, here's the narrative, and this is why you should consider approving them. And surprisingly, back then, there wasn't much automation. I would get it across the line. So it was pure hustle. It taught me that nothing happens until the sale is made. And that's the reality. If you're a business owner, we can call ourselves anything. I call myself an acting director of business development. But ultimately, nothing happens until sale is made. Nobody gets paid until sales is made. Nobody gets work until a sale is made. So then I spent nearly 15 years inside, Telstra, not a small company. I saw the other side of this business world. I wasn't just chasing sales. So I was leading teams to find and plug multi-million-dollar financial leakages. I was using automation, robotics automation, process improvement, Lean Six Sigma to try to bulletproof systems at a massive scale. So for years, these two worlds, Main Street and what we call our equivalent of Wall Street, felt completely separate. And, hustle versus system. So the bridge, that thing that connected it all, was my MBA, Master of Business Administration from the University of Queensland. I was fortunate enough to make the Dean Honors role, so giving myself a pat on the back. Took me 4.5 years though, part-time with a lot of challenges in between, just like every business owner. And it gave me the framework to connect the dots, to take the robust, scalable systems from the corporate world and apply them to the urgent, real-world needs of business owners. So that's my work today. So as a member of the Queensland Government Business Mentor and facilitator for the Multicultural Business Forum that Travis leads along with Dr. Zach, my entire focus is on two things. First, we build a fortress. We find that hidden gold in our business so we can command our price with confidence and customers are willing to pay for that. Second, we build an autonomy architecture. We design the systems that allow our business to thrive without being the central cog for every single decision. So that's what you don't want to be as a business owner. Again, you might be giving yourself titles like CEO, but if the business relies on you, that's not sustainable. That might not even be a business. So that's how you create true valuable sellable assets, and you become dispensable. But first, it starts by fixing a fundamental leak in your growth strategy right now. So let's move on to the topic. So there's one company that is more adept than anybody else on the planet at getting everyone, from families to CEOs, rational, logical numbers, get them to spend more than they intended, a lot more, like 30% more over budget, and still be happy about it. So mom and dad overspending, no problem. B2B overspending, unheard of, especially in this economy. And so guess what that company is? You can see, you got a clue on the screen. It's Disney, right? A few years ago, their main theme park surpassed the entire city of Las Vegas in a key metric. So hopefully you are measuring metrics that matter. What was their metric? Dollars spent per person per day. So how much dollars did each visitor spend per day? So think about that for a moment. Las Vegas has gambling, which is legalized theft. It has a culture built around extravagance and vice. And yet the place with the mouse is extracting more money per person. How does that happen? So according to surveys, the average guest reports spending 4 times more than they originally budgeted for, 400%. So I thought it was 30%, it's actually 400% more. That's the average guess. This doesn't happen by accident. And if it does, that's not a business either. It's the result of a masterclass in psychological architecture and experience design. So if we truly want to understand how to increase the value of our customers, we must study them. Now, you may have heard the term human-centered design, design thinking. This is the masterclass in that. I did human-centered design back in the day, and I'm very much oriented using consumer behavior, behavioral psychology to drive customer experience, customer success. But to get 400% from above budget and them thanking you, I'm not Disney, but we can learn from them. So here we are. So one of the first and most powerful things they did was to systematically remove the friction and the sting from the act of spending money. So decades ago, they tried to get you to trade your real money for Disney dollars, just like a casino uses chips. Now think about that. Why do you go to a casino if you're gambling and you can't just give money? You have to actually exchange it for chips. Why? Because it separates you from the reality of the cash you're spending. If I'm spending $10, $15, $50, it's gonna hurt. But if I'm spending a little plastic coin-looking thing and it's colorful, first of all, it's not mine. And now I'm playing. I'm not gambling, I'm playing. That's why they call it gaming, right? We don't use the word gambling, it's gaming. So there's a lot Disney has learned from the gambling industry, but they've perfected it. They call it a magic band technology. So some of the stuff I will talk about may be outdated. Focus on the principles, focus on how did it get to where they are? How did they actually come about these things that I'm talking about? They may no longer be true, but what kind of mindset is that acquired in terms of design thinking for them to experiment, try, implement, and then if they've changed anything now, well, that's because of their continuous improvement. So Magic Band is a simple wristband. It's your room key, your park ticket, your credit card, all in one. So to buy anything from a multi-$1,000 piece of art, so you can buy that in Disney, to a $72 lunch of 2 hot dogs, $72 for 2 hot dogs. Think about that. So all you gotta do is wave your wrist. So much easier than forking out money. You never see cash. You never pull out a credit card. So the physical act of payment is completely disconnected from the experience. You're not thinking of spending money. You're just thinking, I want this. Click, tap and go, as they say. So some people even put these bands on their children and they instinctively know how to use them. So think about the iPhone, right? Apple. You don't need instructions. Let me switch off my phone. They just get it intuitively. So some people even put these bands. So first principle is this: the easier and more abstract you make the act of spending, the more people will spend. So let me reverse it. How do you get people to spend? Make it easier to spend. Just make it abstract. Disconnect them. Is it ethical? Is it moral? I'm not going to get into that. But at the end of the day, if you are not providing experience, you'll always be selling based on price. And that also goes for industrial. You might be an engineer. It does not matter. You're still dealing with humans, and humans want an experience. We want memories, even in business, because business is boring, let's face it. So if you've got a way to make business interesting, memorable, they're likely to spend more. How much more? Maybe not 400%, but definitely you stand out from the competition. Think about this, a competitive advantage. So this ability to maximize customer value isn't just a tactic. It's a deeply ingrained philosophy that started with the founder. So the story goes that 18 months before the Florida park opened, they had a small visitor center in the middle of a swamp for people to see what's coming, selling the vision. So when the founder of Walt Disney visited for the first time, so he was furious. It's like, why? Like, why are you furious? Because there's nothing for sale. Think about that. How often we do demos for free and we're just so afraid to make an offer, just to make an offer, right? So maybe that's why we're struggling, many businesses, too afraid to make an offer. So he was really upset. There was nothing for sale. His motto was, nobody goes 10 steps without an opportunity to buy something. It's not nobody goes 10 steps without somebody selling them something. It's an opportunity to buy something. It's different thinking. Some people are hunters and they just go for the jugular and we get turned off by them. In fact, they get turned off by them. Nobody likes it. But then you've got the other option where there's an opportunity to buy. There's a way to frame that. There's a way to present that. If you have any questions, ask me later. So before he left, that simple visitor center was transformed into a giant store, massive store, with a small information desk in the middle of it. So this mindset is crucial. So we must stop seeing sales as an interruption to the customer experience. So people say sales versus customer experience. If you worked in frontline sales, it goes hand in hand. Without customer experience, you don't have sales. Without sales, you can't hire people to do customer experience. So the masters see the opportunity to sell as an integral and enjoyable part of the experience. So selling should be enjoyable and integral of the experience, not process, experience. Right? It's an emotional aspect. So the first core principle, and perhaps the most important, is to challenge the unwritten rules of your industry. And if you don't, someone else will, and they'll just trump you, even if you're number one. So the process for doing this is twofold. First, you must take inventory of what everyone else is doing. You must become a deep expert in the common practices, best practices, and the accepted norms of your field or your industry. But you don't stop there. So this is the critical part. You must never be bound by any of it. In fact, the whole reason for becoming a trusted authority and expert is so you can deliberately and intelligently look for ways to violate those norms. So let's take something as simple as a t-shirt. So the industry norm is to display them folded on a table or on hangers, and you leave with it in a bag. Okay. So Disney, they do that too, but particularly in the stores near the park exits, very strategic of them. You also find t-shirts compressed into a tiny little shrink wrap ball so that you can hold it in your fist. Okay. Why? Why not just get it into that folded? It's much more presentable, right? Big branding, all that kind of stuff we hear. Why shrink wrap it and make it a ball shape? Because even if your suitcase is already bursting with things you've bought, there's always room to squeeze in one more little ball. Strategy, design. So they honor the norm, but then they violate it for a massive profit. And so we think about incremental profits. We try to make more sales through the normal means. What Disney does is look at the normal means. They have the normal way, but then they know towards the end of as they're exiting, there's always an opportunity to sell, make it easier for customers to buy, to spend. And so how, in this case, they made it easier. They took a shirt and they squeezed it ball size. Customers thinking, hey, this is my souvenir, my memorabilia. I can share it with the family. I can wear it for myself. And because it's so tiny, I'll just squeeze it into my bag. I mean, I spent a fortune, 400% of what I've already planned. What's another shirt? What's another shirt gets you to spend more? And so what would that look like in your industry? So people think the goal of an amusement park is to build rides. And this is where everybody else is getting it wrong. They're struggling because they think they're a theme park. It was never about that. Okay? The goal was to create a separate world for people to inhabit, a world where they feel safe, appreciated, emotionally connected, a world they feel a part of and never want to leave. Think about the physical design of their parks. If you've never been to Disney World, watch some videos. The entrances are deliberately long and elaborate. You have to walk a long way. Maybe you go under a train station before you even get to the start of Main Street. This seems inefficient. So if you're an engineer, thinking, wow, this is just terrible. It's inefficient. We need to be effective. It's not about doing things right. It's about doing the right things effective. So why not just get people in as quickly as possible so they can start spending now? Because psychologically, they're willing to sacrifice efficiency to create the sense in your head that you have left the mundane, ordinary world behind and have now entered their world. So once you're in their world, their rules apply. So for you to enter their world truly, you've got to go through that journey. You're committing with your feet. And by committing physically, emotionally, you commit. So inside this separate world, there are masses. Disney is creating it's called a sense of place. More importantly, segmenting that place to create status and desire. So they are the least gentle place on earth about discrimination. In fact, it's all about discrimination. So at every single attraction, there's a regular line for the common folks, and then there's the express pass line. They make sure the regular line is long, endless, sweaty, and that you have a very clear view of the people breezing past you. You know how many people do you know how many people that causes to go and immediately buy an express pass? A huge number of them. I mean, you're just waiting and these people are walking past you. You're like, man, I spent so much, let me just spend a little bit more and give me and my family a break that I actually desire. So they do this everywhere. Every resort has a concierge floor and there's special experiences like a backstage down safari that are only available to guests on that floor. They put up signs for it so everyone can see it. So when people ask how can they go there, they're told, oh, I'm sorry, sir, madam, you can't. That's only for our concierge guests. Everywhere you turn, you're gently but firmly shown what you're missing out on because of your current status. How much can you handle ego-wise? So it's a powerful and relentless driver for people to upgrade. Again, you can call this manipulation. It might not sit well with you. What I'm suggesting is first learn the principles and then think about how it can apply based on your principles, your values. So not everybody has to be like Disney, but we're all looking for a competitive advantage, aren't we? And so some of that means doing things differently. And guess what? There's a cohort of people who have enough money. What they're looking for is memory and experience. So they don't think this is unethical. We project that view sometimes. And so my suggestion is just reflect on that. Disney clearly is not taking advantage of poor people. Poor people cannot afford Disney. Disney prices keep going up. So what they're doing is maximizing the value. And most importantly, creating a memorable experience where people thank them for going over their budget. So keep that frame in mind. We're not trying to take advantage. We're trying to bring them something, an experience where they thank you for spending more. Okay. So beyond just physical places, they are brilliant at creating communities and a unique customer culture. You'll see people walking around wearing apparel for the DVC Club or D23. So DVC is Disney Vacation Club. That's timeshare. D23 is another type of club. It's a club. It doesn't matter. It's a club. Think about belongingness and community. So you've got the timeshare and fan club. And this is by design. So when a stranger asks that person, what is that DVC thing? The customer is immediately put in a position where they become a willing and happy salesperson. They're proud. Now think about the psychology here. Let's say you're a member of their timeshare club, DVC, and maybe you're even a little annoyed because you couldn't get the exact booking you wanted. When a stranger asks you about it, you have two choices. You can complain, thereby admitting to this stranger that you are an idiot who made a bad decision. Or you can say, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, which validates what a smart, superior person you are. Which choice do you think 99% of people make? They sell. So they become your most passionate, most convincing, and completely unpaid sales force. So the next principle is fundamental. It's critical. You must tell more stories. Everything must have a story. They call it theatrical mythology. A key point of differentiation is that an attraction or your business, so the specific an attraction at one of their parks is never just a ride. In fact, you would be severely reprimanded for using that word. It's a story experience. You're not on a roller coaster. You are in a story and you're part of that story. It's a critical lesson for any business, especially those of us who sell expertise or information. But hey, you could be a manufacturing wholesaler as well. We often take the term information marketing too literally, people who gives out reports and things like that. We think people want the raw data, but if we could actually sell pure information profitably, most of us could deliver everything we know on a single index card. It's very hard to get thousands of dollars for an index card. Information is a commodity. Think about it. AI can give information. Stories are what create value. The facts and lessons are packaged inside the stories because that's how people remember and connect with them. So yes, we need numbers, the logical, rational stuff, but it's so much easier to share a story with the numbers than without the story. So we want to talk about the stickiness of a signature story. The best stories we will ever tell are stories that our customers can then go and retell. We want our customers to be our secret sales force, right? Make it easy for them to retell our stories. They don't have to get every detail perfect, but they remember the essence of it. So let me give you a couple of signature stories from Dan Kennedy. He's like, if you don't know Dan Kennedy, and if you're in marketing, with all due respect, you're not in marketing. So one of his story is a plumber, and one about it is about a house on fire. Very few people could stand up and teach the 17 technical principles of his marketing system. Even I can't, and I've been a student for 20 years. But almost all of his long-term clients know these two stories by heart. I am not going to go through them. You can look them up. Dan Kennedy, plumber, Dan Kennedy, house on fire. And he's a master at telling these stories, at capturing your heart. So for me, it was the house on fire, the welcome guest versus annoying pest that got me. But the plumber story is also very interesting. So people come up to him and say, tell me about the plumber story. Everyone's been telling me about it. So what sticks for them? The story. How will they better remember the technical concept of an endorsed mailing? What is even endorsed mailing? Think about that, right? It doesn't make any sense. But by giving them a 5-point checklist, or by telling them the plumber story, which has the entire lesson embedded within it, and they don't even have to remember the words endorsed mailing. Right? It's always the story. Your goal is to convey your customers into storytellers, and they'll happily do it. I mean, who doesn't like sharing a yarn around the barbecue? Okay, so principle 5. This is a bag. This is a big one, especially for those of us who sell to professionals or in serious industries. Sophisticated, rational. 15 years at Telstra, reminded me how true what Dan Kennedy is true. It says the most rational. I was surrounded by engineers at that time, and it's like they're still human. We talk to them. Ultimately, they might have family, they might have kids, they have aspirations. They're human. Okay. So we hear the objection, oh, that's fine for you, but my customers are sophisticated CEOs. They're highly educated. We can't be goofy with them. That is complete nonsense. Me personally, I was surrounded by people with double masters, not single, double. So I got intimidated and I decided to do a master's of business just to kind of fit in. My boss had 2 masters, his boss had 3 or 4 masters. And that's the industry, that's the environment, right? So I did a master's to kind of fit in. Can't help it, being human. So, but that same sophisticated CEO is at a theme park at Disney, dressed in a matching family t-shirt, singing along with the pirates, and having the time of his or her life. Mostly his, because a lot of CEOs are still men. Life is too short to be serious. The people buy best when they are in a state of fun, right? There's a book called Make Them Laugh, Take Their Money. This doesn't necessarily mean laughing wildly. You don't need to. We after all, not everybody's Disney, but Disney has a B2B offer. It's called Disney Institute, and they charge a bucket load for businesses to come and learn about experience and then create that experience for their B2B clients or B2C clients. But it does mean being in a good, amused, entertained mood. So one of the most powerful ways to create that mood is to theme everything we do. And when we decide on a theme, we must go all in, 100%. Don't try to be logical about this. Go 100%. Because what are humans other than emotional creatures? There's a book by Professor Dan Ariely, Predictably Irrational. Look it up. It'll change your life. So when they decide on a theme, they go all in, down to the smallest detail. If you stay at one of their resorts themed around the Saratoga racetrack, of course, the curtain in your room have a horse race pattern, but the closures for the drapes are little tiny brittles. The wake-up call is a whining horse. The room itself has become an attraction. The hallway is an attraction. This commitment to the theme creates that fun mood that makes people not mind spending, they don't mind spending obscene amounts of money. Another example is pin trading. It's a massive business, but it's framed as an fun activity. You need pins to play, so you buy them. You can trade with staff members. It's a themed activity that drives millions in sales. So Dan Kennedy once worked with clients selling to high-earning financial advisors. And they themed the seminar around construction, sent them toy trucks and hard hats, even had a full-size crane at the hotel entrance. Every single one of them put on their little hard hat and got their picture taken. They were in fun and all bought what they were selling. So again, financial services, construction, ridiculously looking hard hats. It works. Even the person who doesn't want a hard hat, they look around, everybody's wearing a hard hat. Nobody wants to look like a douche or a jerk. They put the hard hat on. And then what happens? They go from grumpy to smiley, fun, and the sales are closed. Okay, so for this last principle, at least for this week, because I've gone on long enough, and I'll continue part 2 next week of customer value, 400% acceleration. This last principle is a work of true genius. It's about looking at the most boring, mundane, necessary part of your business. The things you think, you're thinking we need to minimize costs. But then Disney thinks, how can we turn this into an attraction? So efficiency versus effectiveness. If you're an engineer, you're a process person, you're an accountant, you're going to hate this, but I'm going to just suspend your belief for a moment, please. Just suspend it. You don't have to accept it. After we're done, you can just go back to doing what you're doing. But for the sake of your clients, for the sake of your business, suspend your belief. So a huge logistical problem for a place the size of a city, Florida Disney theme park, is transportation. They have to move millions of people around. For most, transportation is an annoyance. They said transportation can be an attraction. So they have boats themed like the Navy vessels with entertaining captains. They have monorail that was once revolutionary and most famously flies directly through the lobby of a hotel. Through the lobby of a hotel. Kids are mesmerized. I'm mesmerized. Right? It's not just a way to get from one store to another, it's an experience in itself. They took a boring necessity and made it part of the show. They didn't focus on cost cutting. How do we minimize the cost? How do we improve efficiency? They looked at how can we turn this into a sales enabler. And that's where I think we all need to seriously think about, especially when B2B, we need to help our business clients think broader, not just there's only saving so much cost cutting you can do, so much efficiencies you can drive. That's not a competitive advantage, it's a survival tactic. And so let me end this with a story from Dan Kennedy. So he was in New York and his friend was insisting on going to a particular restaurant, not for the food, but because he had to experience the men's room. So according to Dan Kennedy, you walk in and instead of a normal urinal, there's a rock wall with a waterfall. And when you walk up to it, a female British voice says, "Oh, how nice of you to visit. I'm not a female. I can't do a British voice." But you can imagine or just ask AI to do it for you. But the thing is, it talks to you, right? Can you imagine a urinal waterfall in a charming British voice, female, in a men's room, talking to you? So he went out and spoke to the manager and he said, "This is what brings all our business. That's why we did it." The restaurant, you're thinking about food. This restaurant thinks about the most wasteful, inefficient thing, the stinkiest place, the place where it's a must-have and it's a necessity, and it now becomes the marketing tool. So people can't resist telling everyone they know about, the talking waterfall in the bathroom, Think about the story. So they took the most mundane necessity, turned it into their single greatest marketing asset. So what's in your business? What is it that is currently just a necessity, a financial burden? What is something you just have to do that you could transform into a cool, remarkable experience that people can't resist talking about? Okay, I'll give you an example. Because of Indian heritage, Pakistani heritage, I still remember going to these countries as a little kid in the 80s. And what fascinated me was the trucks. And the trucks, they were, to say decorated is an understatement. So if you look at Pakistan, if you Google Indian trucks, Pakistani trucks, and it wasn't just the decorations. When they pressed the horn, it had a funny sound. And so you're talking about this third world country, you've got a truck, trucking everywhere. But then visually they're so appealing. At the same time, they sound very interesting. And you don't see that, in the Western world. Now, there is some compliance regulatory issue, but you got to think, how is it that these people who are struggling and like in a economically low living standards can be so innovative, can be so creative? And here we are in a blessed country. I'm talking about Australia. We're very lucky. How is it we find reasons not to be innovative? And innovation does not mean you spend a bucket load of money, right? I just gave the example of Pakistan. I'm talking about the restaurant, a urinal. So you only need to look at one thing and invest in it and trial it. And I'm pretty sure those Pakistani trucks did not start with the whole truck. I'm pretty sure they started small and they got some feedback and they kept going and going and going. And it's pretty impressive to look at, really impressive for their standard. Actually, even for our standards, pretty. And it might be illegal here in Australia, but it's about thinking beyond the convention. Okay, so it comes down to this, as I just said, right? You go through some of the most powerful principles of experience, architectures used anywhere in the world. And I know it can feel like a lot. I can feel, it feels like you need to go back and completely reinvent the entire business today. I want you to encourage you to resist that feeling. It's very easy to look in a big business and say, "Oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that." Okay. Remember the legal disclaimer. You don't have to do everything at once. The most prudent path forward is to simply look at all the ideas we've discussed, not just today, the last 7 episodes or whatever. Pick one. Just one idea that feels like the easiest or most logical fit for our business right now. Maybe it's turning one boring necessity into a slightly more interesting experience. Maybe it's identifying one way to create a bit of positive scarcity. Just start there. Build that one small piece, low risk, low cost. See the positive reaction it gets, if any, and let that success provide all the energy and motivation you need to take the next step. If you don't, someone else will. And then you're going to think, oh, I was going to do that. I was going to invent the roller skates. We didn't do it. Someone did. They're reaping the rewards. All right. So if you're just reflecting on this and you're thinking, yes, I'm one of those people. I'm up in the middle of the night. I got anxiety, 2, 3 a.m. I'm wondering, I'm working 80 hours a week just to stand still. You're thinking, the business would fall apart if I took a 2-week holiday. You're thinking we're busier than ever, but our profits are shrinking. Really, what you're looking for is business development without additional risk or cost. Right? You don't want additional operational financial strain. There's a lot of smart people out there who will give you growth. But be careful what you wish for. Growth kills businesses. So you want to you are an architect, whether you like it or not, and everybody else is providing tools and toolkits. That's important. But as an architect, you need to design a business that can grow, develop, expand, diversify. And you've got to do it in a structured way, a proper planned way, so that when you start seeing those double, triple digit returns, your wheels don't fall off, you don't start losing your staff, and your customers don't start dropping like flies, and then your piggy bank, your cash flow starts drying up. Right? That if you're right now you're experiencing those issues, unhappy customers, unhappy staff, cash flow tightening, you really need to stop. Okay. You're welcome to SMS MBF, so Multicultural Business Forum, to my personal mobile 0430-370-364. We'll have an informal chat. I don't do those strategy sessions, they're really disguised for sales calls. Back in the day, I was really much on closing sales. Right now, I'm more focused on opening relationships. So we want to have an informal chat. Let's text each other first at our convenience, see if it makes sense to talk on Zoom. And from there, let's see if it makes sense to go any further. Cool. Thank you for your time and you have a great day. I'm going to stop sharing and stop recording.